How Slavery Affected Capitalism by Hannah Flynn. So our introduction. In a country where an ambulance cost $1,000 and pills are monopoly, we find ourselves in the midst of a society where money is valued far more than people. Our ways of capitalism to many seem morally unethical and in reality stems from slave labor. So we as Americans try and hide when teaching younger generations the true history of slavery. This is a quote by Hudson, an expert in the field. The new history of capitalism's disavowal of radical scholarship is clearest in its treatments of slavery, which for more than a century has been a principal concern of scholars within the radical tradition. And that's very, very true. It is so telling that we as a country do not want to address the true history of slavery. So in this quote here, I have, if men want to oppose war, it is staticism that they must oppose. And this is a quote by Ayn Rand. And staticism is basically kind of trusting in having the government dealing with economics and having almost complete control over that. So in a way, it's basically saying if men want to oppose war, then you have to oppose capitalism. So what is this topic about? So here's where we're going to delve a little bit more into our topic on a deeper level. So capitalism's roots began in the cotton field and was fed on slave labor. Even after England abolished slavery, the United States made the conscious and morally lacking choice to gain mass amounts of money from slave trade. We continuously and willingly exploited those with slave labor and violence, which is very, very true and wrong of us as a country. But the thing is that we're going to go a little bit deeper into this and figure out exactly, though, why we did all these things. Really quickly, though, for quick facts. So 79 years old being the average, around 2 American lifetimes have passed since slavery was abolished. And another fact is that the history, in quotation marks, of slavery, many learn today is not actually how life was 2 average American lifetimes ago. The story we learn is much less gruesome than how slavery actually was, and much less brutal. And some even call it whitewashing U.S. history, just because we want it to be kind of more of a happy, not happy, but shed more of a positive light on it than there actually was. So a few features of the topic. So drives for slavery. Why were colonists so prominent in wanting to participate in slave labor and trade, stealing indigenous land? How did we expand and grow as a country? Cotton takes over. Why did cotton become so popular? The hierarchy. How was such a large workforce managed? Work then versus now. Are the way one's job is set up now have any roots coming from slavery? And racial inequality in Rhode Island. Do we still see the effects of prejudice today, and how can we fix this? So these are all features of the topic. On the left, top left-hand side, you'll see the little box and icons, which will tell you what part we're at. Starting off with the drives for slavery. $800 was the price increase on the value of an enslaved worker from 1800 to 1860. So in 1860, almost $150, $1,500 was what the average male mid-age slave would be the going rate for. So that's one of the reasons why colonizers wanted slavery, was because part of the profit was from slave trade itself. Many people, this brought people coming into the US and really helped our economy in any way, from what people believed at that point in time. Um, so 2.3% of an increase in cotton, um, picked from 1800 to 1860 is insane. Um, that's basically having, um, hmm, like triple the workforce from 60 years before. Um, and this was super beneficial because nobody was getting paid for it, so we were just gaining free labor and selling things that we weren't paying for at all. Um, so this was another reason why colonists enjoyed this. And then in the 1700s, the years that we began to use enslaved people as mortgage collateral, I know this was especially big in North Carolina, but this was something that people actually believed that it was almost like an investment, to invest in slaves and to be able to use it if anything went wrong, with your house or if you lost it. So these were some of the driving forces as to why we even had slavery and why it was so prominent. So to be able to produce all this and to grow all this cotton, we needed more land, and this is where Western expansion came in. That same competitive pressure pushed the slaveholders onto the far more productive soils of Alabama and Mississippi black belts, a massive migration that entailed the brutal dispossession of Native Americans from the Southwest and the systematic breakup of slave families and communities. Oaks. So we gained more money as a country by stealing and reselling indigenous land, encouraging the growth of cotton. Slave labor was also used to clear out the land of trees or any vegetation, but this also ruined and depleted the soil, and showed how we as a country really had no environmental value, for environmental sustainability. So also in this picture, it says Indian land for sale. And at that point in time, when they had first started selling, the land, it was worth $1.25. So this was kind of an incentive for Western civilization kind of move over, and to make use out of that land, how we hadn't done before. So a reason that cotton is such a big deal, really starts off with because we ran cotton. We owned it in a way. Not in a way, but we were half of the world's cotton producers. So in 1831, the United States exported 350 million pounds of cotton, which was almost for half of the world. We monopolized on this. We really did. And the thing is that cotton was grown in the South, but what people seem to forget is that in the North, it was also utilized in textile mills for other American goods, to be sold and used. So again, this was free resources to make goods to then be sold. So cotton really was just the most amazing thing to them. And this also, though, created a new economic boom. And this was unfamiliar because it changed the way the economy worked. Because we had to be able to travel and transfer goods between long distances, which we had not had to do before. So coming along with that, though, is that now we have the nation's most valuable export being cotton, and our whole country is cotton now, right? So now we need to adapt. Starting off with that is the hierarchy system. So the growth of operations on a much larger scale than ever heard of before is really what happened. By investing large sums of money into these operations, it can largely expand your business. Investing in purchasing large cotton presses and gins, along with acquiring more workers, had to come with more supervision. So at the top, you had 2 lawyers who were hired by the plantation owners, who then had an overseer, a singular overseer, report back to them, who was in charge of the bookkeepers, who reported back to the overseer, who reported back to the lawyers. Then, under the bookkeepers, they were the head drivers. There were about a dozen of them who split up thousands of slaves to make sure that they were performing at their best capacities and their best efforts. So this was something that, again, was really, really unheard of, but it's also used today, and why we have this system today, how we have bosses, supervisors, so everything in a way is supposed to be ran down smoothly. Going along with this, though, in the workforce, we can see some correlation from back then to now. So especially with employee satisfaction. So basically, with employee satisfaction, it was created to make sure that plantations ran smoothly during operation at all times. The thing is that we did fail to understand human error while making this, so it's kind of a unhealthy type of system to follow, because human error really needed to be taken into account, and those who basically slaves, though, who made that human error really had to deal with the repercussions of it. So we see this, though, in making sure today in the workplace employees are satisfied with what they do, but also understanding of that data. The data is really always there. Productivity monitoring. So today productivity of employees is strongly monitored to maximize profits, but at the time they had just figured this out. So to watch this, the bookkeepers and overseers would monitor and record workers' efforts. In these books, you could determine things like end of the year balances, tallying expenses and revenues, and noticing their biggest gains and losses. Sadly, they were also able to see the value of a certain slave at any given time based on their age, gender, strength, and even temperament. So it's honestly people reduced to data points, and that's how they judged, which was wrong. But we still do this using books to make sure that employees are doing the work that employers expect of them and to their best capacity. And then another thing that we have now is light work. So it was created for slaves who were sick with the measles or pregnant slaves to do light inside work. And we have this today. If somebody had broken their leg and they worked at a physical labor job, they could sit at a desk and do some of the paperwork for that company. It's just alternatives so that we are able to make sure that everybody is still working or giving in a way. Before I change slides really quickly, though, really quick, just to go back to productivity monitoring. Another way that we're monitored consistently in the workplace is through video